Hello, and welcome to the Three Questions podcast, where we dive deep into the world of wealth management and connect you with industry experts. I'm your host, Wayne Baxter, Senior Executive Manager at One Capital Management. Now, today we're tackling a decision that could make or break any organization, and that is hiring your next key employee. So what's our topic today? The three questions business leaders, owners, and practitioners should ask before hiring their next key employee. Thank you for taking time to check us out. And if you enjoyed this episode of the Three Questions podcast, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our YouTube and podcast channels. In today's competitive job market, with unemployment at about 4.2% nationally and top talent in high demand, finding the right fit isn't about skills, it's about strategy, culture, and timing. It's generally agreed that a bad hire can cost a business up to 30% of an employee's first year salary, and a great one can drive growth and innovation. Now, Kathy Dawson serves as founder and CEO of Dawson Dawson, Inc. She oversees her firm's executive and retained search, temporary, and contract staffing and business development practices. Kathy is a CSP, and that stands for Certified Staffing Professional. And she has over 40 years of experience in local national marketplace and has assisted thousands of business owners across the United States to hire the right employee at the right time. So who better to have on the Three Questions podcast this week to discuss our topic, which is the three questions business leaders, owners, and practitioners should ask before hiring their next key employee. Joining us from beautiful Laguna Niguel, California, is Kathy Dawson. Kathy, thank you so much for having time for us today. I appreciate seeing you and having you as a guest.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great to know you and know about your business.
The
and
way
now be
we
on your
last ran
podcast.
into other was classic. We were at a Maple Leafs Ducks game down in Anaheim, and amazingly, the seats I had were literally next to where you and your friends were sitting. So that was really great. It was great seeing you, and from my standpoint, it worked out really well because the Leafs won that game, so I was all happy, and I got to
Yes,
hang out with you.
that is correct. You were happier than we were.
Yeah. So, Kathy, before we get into our questions, this is a follow-up to a conversation we had a couple weeks ago. I really wanted to get your take on the current job market here in the U.S. Now, nationally, the data that we have shows that unemployment is around 4.2%. That's below the long-term national average. Wage inflation appears to be slightly higher than the personal consumption expenditure index and CPI. So that suggests that workers have more spending power. That's good news, obviously. More Americans seem to be reentering the workforce. All sounds like really good news. That said, you're on the front lines here, so I'm really interested, and I know my clients, my colleagues, my peers here at One Capital will be interested on your point of view of what you see in the labor market here in 2025.
I think it's a great question because most people that know anybody that runs in the same crowd I run in, which is search and staffing, they always know that we know what's going to happen in the market before you know as a business owner.
You're a leading indicator.
That's exactly right. Thank you, Wayne, for saying that so well. So yes, definitely leading indicator. And what you've said is correct. It's true. Like if you run the data, we all Google things, right? And get the data. The data looks like we're recovering, but it's not true. So the U.S. labor market is resilient, and we've always been resilient. I've been doing this actually 43 years, so it's been quite a while. And I've seen it do this number quite a few times, right? So we're back in that again. And I do think things are going to get a little bit worse before they get better. So we have low unemployment and we have a steady wage growth, which gives you hopeful signs, right? And then you have increased labor force participation, meaning people, like you said, going back to work. So all those things would say, hey, we're going to be okay, right? But the reality is there's a slow pace of job creation. And with the trade policies and the government, basically laying off 9,000 people just a few months ago, things are really not where they look like they are today. So what can you do and how can you navigate is what we're going to talk about today. But it is less positive than one would assume based on the numbers. And what we're seeing is a lot less work, right? So where we would have 100, 150 jobs at one time to as low as say 60 to 70, we now see that it's much lower than that. And then not only that, because getting the jobs is one thing, but it's actually wanting to initiate and continue that interviewing process and make a hire. So what happens is, again, that wavy line, right? So they say, I want, and then they go, oh no, the tariffs are down. No, 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 I want, and then they go back down again. So the first quarter of this year was like that, right? With the new regime and all the new rules and all that. And so people are really taking a hold and wait sort of status right
You're talking
now
about
is what
people
we're
being the
seeing.
employers are taking sort of a hold and wait and see approach.
Exactly, Wayne. That's
All right.
exactly right.
Interesting. So it's pretty hard for you to predict the future, but if we, I will say internally, our take is that, of all the economies of the world, we tend to take the position that, the U.S. economy is going to be the strongest of the bunch going forward. So if we do see a strengthening in the economy, would that not lead to a more optimistic outlook for you from your point of view as well?
You bet. You bet. It certainly would. It just hasn't happened that way in the
Yeah.
last 43 years.
Okay.
So I'm
Oh,
just saying, I
well,
hope from your words to reality, right?
my
From
words
your
to
mouth
God,
to
what is it?
reality is
My from my ears to God, whatever, how they were.
yeah, there you go. Yeah. But it's an interesting time. And in really being in any business, you have to navigate and pivot quite a bit, as we both know from being in businesses for a long time. So we're just doing that. We're pivoting and we're teaching our clients how to pivot and we're helping them really understand the market so they can get the best people before their competition does.
Well, what you've just done. I don't know if you realize this, and this is clearly as usual with this podcast. It's think as we go here, but you've just set yourself up for a return appearance on the podcast because
Ooh, there you go.
yeah, I think for sure I'm going to want to have you on before the end of the year for an update on what you're seeing with regards to the job market. So,
Well, and
well
I
done,
really
Kathy
hope
Dawson.
I hope that and I'm wrong, right? I hope that when you come back, you can say, Kathy, I told you it was going to be great. And I'm going to say, Wayne, you
Well,
did
you
it.
we are definitely I'm not even speculating. We are definitely going to want to have you back before the end of the year for an update. Kathy Dawson's outlook for the labor market for the US for 2026.
There you go. Exactly.
Okay, so be prepared, everybody. We're going to have Kathy back. So, you know, you've been in this industry, you said over 40 years. Um, if you go back and look over the years that you've been in this industry, national search and staffing, what have been the most significant changes that you have seen that have impacted now better for worse, either good
Yeah.
or bad,
Yeah.
in your ability to service your clients? And again, when I view your clients as being the employer, not the employee.
Yeah, yeah. We actually are two-sided, right? Employer and employee, because we need both to survive. But you're right. I think it starts with the employer's
For sure.
perspective and outlook, and then you either get hired or don't get hired based on their success. Really, is how it goes. So, gosh, when you asked me that question, I thought, wow, what haven't I seen? Right after 43 years, and I just wrote a book. We talked about that earlier, but the book was about some of the stuff I've seen. But the reality is that technology is the first thing that came to my mind, right? Because when I started, I hate to say it, but there weren't computers. I used to get all my lists of companies I wanted to call from either the Yellow Pages or the Martin Hubble directory out of the library. So this is very elementary 43 years ago. Technology really has been our friend and it's been great.
In Canada, when I was in Toronto, my very first job with IPC, my former company in Canada, we had something called the Scots Business Directory.
Oh,
And so the
yeah.
Scots Business Directory was big. I know they created them for different regions, but the one that was given to me, I mean, if you ever dropped it off a building, you could kill somebody with it. It was so huge. It was massive. And my boss at the time said, okay, I want you to call every business with 20 or more employees in the city
Yeah,
of Markham, Ontario.
yeah, yeah,
And it
yeah.
was not on a computer. Now I remember
No.
the big evolution was that you could buy it on a CD. And that was like space
Oh,
age.
big time.
I think that was around 1996. But in
Wow.
94, I got this book that was, I swear to, it was like one of those huge coffee table.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know. I
It was
understand.
like, it was like, yeah. Anyway, so I know exactly what you're talking about. There were no computers.
Yeah, yeah. So technology was definitely something when it started happening, we were excited about. I remember one of my clients going to Microsoft versus DOS. Remember DOS? And
Oh
it was
gosh.
Microsoft, and it was Word Perfect. And
Yes, I do.
Microsoft was all the rage, right? And I had a mortgage banking company that hired all their employees from me, from about a 20 employee person to over 350. And they were so excited that we could get people in a different way because of the technology that we adapted to. So technology has been really a wonderful thing for the last 43 years to sort of see and evolve. And then candidate behavior is also another thing, because as we go through those ebbing and flowing of the years and the market and the way that it changes and that sort of thing, people's personalities change, their needs change,
Huge.
their ability to prioritize their work versus their personal life has taken a different sort of look. So that expectations. Also, globalization and remote work. I mean, gosh, I could never have sat with you from my home office the way I'm doing it right now with the technology that we had and the experience we had. We always thought back in the old days, and you might be with me on this, that if it's you don't see it, it's not real, which is not true.
Yeah.
But that
Perception
was
is
what we were
reality.
trained. Yeah, that's what we were trained to do. So that's really important too. And then the rise of the contingent workforce and the gig economy. You know, there's so many things you can do. You can literally have 4 or 5 jobs and get the things you want from those jobs versus having one traditional job and retiring from that job after 40 years of working there. So that's really been a big deal. Regulatory and legal affairs, right? The way we do the business that we do, you know, how do we interview? We can't interview and ask like the old days, how old are you? How much do you weigh? Do you fit in a size 2 or whatever it was they were saying? And so it's really changed. So you have to now not ask these questions and can only ask these questions. And you can't even ask someone their salary history. Did you know that? It's crazy. And when they said you couldn't ask them their salary history, I was the first one to say, how can we place them in a job where they're equally yoked and they're progressing forward if I don't know what they're making? And we've navigated through that. But those are some of the things that we were told throughout the process is that we're like, you're trying to really hurt us here, not help us. Help us help the client, right? And then the client behavior and expectations, right? So as you go through these things, the client who's paying the fee is saying, well, I don't want that. Well, I don't want that. And you're saying, well, that's fine, but you can't legally do that. You can't legally do that. Well, I don't want to do, you know, so there's a lot of reorganization and realignment is the key word, realignment that's occurred. And then we're very much into the data driven recruiting, right? So to prepare for this meeting, you know, I looked at my numbers, my own company numbers. Then I went to the internet and chat GPT and I said, okay, what are the numbers that everybody's putting in? And so you get a much more fair way of looking at what the actual competitors are doing and actual other companies are doing, so you can add more value. So those were the biggest changes, you know, in the last
Interesting.
43 years.
I had one that was, well, two actually, I was thinking about while you were talking. And that was really excellent, Kathy. So one of them is this: 2020, COVID happened, and it seemed like the labor market it was like an exosketch.
You bet.
Literally, all of a sudden, we had 14% of the workforce like temporarily unemployed. And then when they came back, it was like the rules had changed.
Yeah,
I'm
what do we do with
I'm
them?
not living in paying $3,500 a month to live say in a condo in Silicon Valley. I'm going to move to Boise, Idaho. Or
Yes.
I had a client that literally, and I think he if he's listening to this, he'll say, Wayne, you got it all wrong. But him and his wife literally traveled around the US, I will say in an RV or in a
Yeah.
van,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he worked from Sedona. I know for
Yes.
sure. I think he was down in Lake Havasu for a while,
Hey, if
but
it's the
he was
same
literally,
guy,
and this isn't like a highly compensated person in the
yeah,
biotech space. Like he was,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so people were
I
like
ran into a
moving
guy.
around.
Yeah, I ran into a guy like that too, and he in Mexico too. He was in Mexico for a few months, so they became nomads, right? and because they couldn't go into an office. So they decided, okay, well, I'm not going to sit in my office or my house in my garage. A lot of them were in their garages, right? Or their guest bedrooms. And they were having such difficulty really just being real people. So they decided to take it on the road. And it was very inspirational to see some of these people doing it. Although I will say I was very jealous too. I was like, wait, they're doing
Yeah.
all that and I'm still in
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
house.
So what I saw though, and again, this is from my lens, is that you had a workforce that became a lot more demanding of what when they were taking, because they were from again, this is from my lens. I saw a lot of people being, recruited and moving from company to company and getting incredible offers, salary increases, bonuses, perks, work from home, like a lot of like, and it kind of changed the whole employee employer relationship.
We call that buying love, buying their love.
Yeah, yeah,
when
yeah.
you do that and you make them an offer that they really shouldn't be getting, but because of the timing, it makes sense. They have to bring immediate value or they're immediately terminated. So I always tell people be careful. If it sounds too good to be true, it's called combat pay.
Interesting. So
So it should be interesting to see who did that you know of and what they did, right? And how it worked out.
I had very few of my own clients, Kathy, that actually took any of these really far out offers, but it was just something that we heard about from an
Sure.
industry for all the time of people, all the relocations. And we had labor, we had two jobs available for every one employee. And it was really, we saw
Oh, yeah,
wage inflation up and around 7.5%. And it's like, holy smokes.
that's right.
And now we're kind of back to that. I would call it an equilibrium. The other one I'm curious about is, and I'm thinking about a client of mine back in Toronto. She worked in the radio industry. She was an advertiser. And when she
Mhm.
turned 65, the radio station she was with, and it's one of the top radio stations in Canada, told her, "You're 65, you have to go."
Oh,
Right. And I was curious, like, I don't know if that's legal anymore, but I was curious, like, if somebody turns 65 now, is an employer, they can't like say, you know what, you've hit retirement age, you have to leave.
that
I'm
is correct. That is correct. However, I am not an employment attorney, so I will
I
say
know
that
that,
also. I
but
will say that also. But yeah, that would be a bad look for you and your company. And if you're thinking about doing that, you want to reach out to a labor and employment attorney. But they do take a look at your ability to output certain amount of work, right? So, and it's no secret when you get a little bit more mature, things slow down a little bit more. But if you're really good in your job, there's no problem with you keeping it as long as you're really good in your job. What we
as long as you
see,
can produce, basically,
yeah, what we see happening is that people are slowing down, and they're doing it somewhat on purpose too, because they deserve to slow down. They've been working their whole life, right? So they need to do something they enjoy. They need to do something that gives them value and makes them feel good about their work. But also, they're very big contributors, and we see that with a lot of seniors,
a
that
lot
do a
of
lot of
intellectual
volunteering.
property up there in the old cranium, right? I mean,
It's true. It's true. And we are seeing where there are a lot of the mentoring that happens. Like our company has mentoring also, where we have the senior people that mentor the junior people. It doesn't have to be in your company, it can be somebody outside of your company as well. Really, the key with this conversation is how to get your company aligned with the new kinds of candidates you're going to be attracting and how to keep them there. That's what this meeting is all about, you and I. So we're
exactly.
going to find
So,
out that.
on that note, we are discussing the three questions business leaders, owners, and practitioners should ask before hiring their key employee. Kathy, let's get right to our three questions. Why not? Let's get show on the
Let's do
road.
it. Let's
So,
do it.
question number one, how important is the job description? Is the job description when looking for a key employee? So
So,
the employee, the description of the job that the employer puts out there for everybody to see.
it is the most important thing they can do to attracting a person without the actual interview process, right? So the interview process has to be handled very well also, or you're going to lose this recruit. And if the recruit has exactly what you're looking for and you've been looking for a while, you don't want to blow that. If you send a job description to somebody who's a high profile candidate who knows what they want and you want them, they're equally yoked with your organization, then they're going to look at that. And if it's 10 years old or even 5 years old, they're going to say, well, probably that company is not very modernized and they're not very up to date on the things that are happening in the economy and or the marketplace with that industry. And so they're going to run as fast as they can. So
Hmm.
it is really, really important. So what's so important about it? Well, first of all, it's your first impression and your branding. If you don't have your logo on your job description, if you don't have why it's a great company to work for on your job description, you're missing an unbelievable opportunity. So, and then that job description, there are a lot of people who do amazing job descriptions, and I can definitely give recommendations to some of those people. They write job descriptions like you write love letters. They're just so good at it, and they
Like
can
a
make
real estate
anybody.
agent describing a home.
That's right. They want to make anybody want to do that job is the idea. So it has to, the job description has to align with expectations, the internal and external. So if I'm a key marketing person and you're going to send me a job description and it says I'm going to be data mining on Lotus, I'm going to say, Lotus? What?
Yikes.
Yeah. And I'm going to go, is this an old one? Can you send me an updated one? And if they don't do it, I'm going to be not returning that call, right? I'm going to ghost that employer if I'm a candidate. And so you do get ghosted a lot with things that you don't really understand why. Sometimes it's the way they've been treated. Sometimes it's a job description. Sometimes it's the way they think the culture is based on what they read. There's Glassdoor also that people can look you up on and see if you have good hiring practices and have treated people properly. It's all confidential there. So, and there's cameras everywhere and people everywhere talking about your business. So it's good to keep it right from the start. So this job description also helps compliance, so if you hire someone and they don't work out, you can go back to the job description. You can say, well, this is what we had agreed you were going to do. And they sign that usually, but yet you're not doing A, B, and C of that. Can we talk about why that's not happening and how to make it be happening? And if you can't make it happen, then let's talk about maybe an exit plan because this is what you're hired to do in a very nice way, not emotional, very just matter of fact. So it helps with compliance. The other good thing is all this technology today, when someone's looking for a job, they're putting in keyword searches. So
Yeah.
I've been marketing, right? I'm going to be a marketing manager or a marketing VP. I'm going to be with advertising. I'm going to be with staffing. I'm going to have all these keywords that somebody in my industry is going to go, oh, she's got all that. Oh my gosh, there's 3 things she has that we need. Oh, I need to talk to this person. So you want your job description to have keywords on there that can be searched out to make sure that those candidates that are looking to work for someone like you can find you. And then it also enables a strategic conversation with that person. So let's assume you get somebody who's not as qualified as you want for that job description, but you're enthralled with their personality and their drive, their ambition. You can tell this person, if given the right chance, could be an amazing, even right hand to you. That might be the case. So you want to just send the job description and then discuss it because you're having this equally yoked conversation. And he or she's going to say, if they're the right person, I don't know that, but I know this and I can learn that, right? So they're going to have these conversations with you that are actually real words. It's not just, made up emails, text messages, and chat GPT back and forth. No, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about really getting to know somebody. So it's really a strategic asset is how we should look at a job description. That's my best advice for everybody. And I
You
do
know what?
have,
I was just
go ahead.
thinking about it. You're looking at it almost from a qualitative and quantitative perspective.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yep, yep. And I
Yeah.
have a template for our listeners if they choose to have that. Yeah, I'll send it to them for free so they can just let me know because the template will help them follow what they need to follow and make sure that they're not missing anything.
Perfect.
And a lot of people have less time and less money right now. So I'm trying to do a lot of value adds in this podcast because I really want to make sure they get what they need. And then hey, if it doesn't work on their own, they know who to call, right?
And we have your email listed underneath you on the screen
You
here.
do, you
And we'll give it
do.
and we'll give it and we'll give it out at the end of the broadcast for folks who are listening in. Just before we go on to our second question, I just thought I'd just pick your brain a little bit more on this one.
Sure.
What do you think is the most common mistake business owners make when they're writing a job description? What is, and how can they avoid them? What are like, will you say that this is something that everybody does and they need to stop?
Yeah, I got one of those right off the bat. What they do, and they've got to stop, is they say must wear many hats. They say you're going to do accounting, customer service, HR, and finance, and you're also going to take care of the parking garage. I swear they do, Wayne. And you're like, you want them to do what? What are you saying here? Are you sure you wrote this when you were at the office? You're
Yeah.
like, I don't know. It almost sounds like a personal assistant ad or something. So
Mhm.
yeah, they can't be to do everything, one-stop shop. Because again, that's a red flag, right? It's to a candidate who's interviewing, looking at that, they're going, they want me to do there's four functions here that should be separate jobs, and they're all in one. Now, the difference is if you're a solo entrepreneur and you have a lot of things you want them to do, well, you just have to make sure they have the skills to do it and the patience to do it sometimes, because it might be jobs they're not done in many, many years, and they might be offended if they have to go pick up the kid from daycare or write an Excel spreadsheet on how to answer the phone or something. I mean, they'll be, what am I doing here? So you have to have a big heart to be able to work for a smaller organization, because we all know we do whatever we need to do to get through that day.
So as well as
So,
setting the right expectations,
yes, yes.
essentially.
Yes, exactly. And some specifics on that are being too generic, too vague. I want someone who makes the office a happy place to be. Well, that's not going to work.
What does that mean?
You need to say, I need someone to manage the front office and the back office, and they need to greet the clients, and they need to respond, and that all the details of what they're going to do. Because at the end of the day, if you hire someone like this, and in about 2 weeks you're going to realize, oh my gosh, I have hired someone that's not skilled for this job, and it might be you that's not skilled in writing a job description, is what it might be. So let me go through some of the other ones to avoid. So too generic, too vague, listing too many responsibilities, right? Focusing on tasks, not outcomes. So we want to make sure that we have X amount of candidates in our pipeline by this date, by this time, is what you would say if you were in my business, right? Or
Mhm.
for you, we have an X amount of podcasters ready to go to do the podcast. That could be a KPI that they had to be responsible for. So you want to be clear. So the way I always start job descriptions is, okay, what do I really want to make sure they do? The most important things I write down first. So to me, it's taking care of me because I need some help, right? So do they have the patience? Do they have the business moxie? Are they able to have conversations at a high level with people who might call for me? And are they happy? Do they want to be helpful? And will they do other work also? So I have some things that are really important to me. The actual job that I have that works for me is a recruiter and or a salesperson, typically in our organization. We have 17 full-time people, so we've got lots of great staff, but we want to make sure that they're all put in positions where they can succeed. A lot of
Exactly
times
right.
you can't succeed because of the way it's been set up by the client. So the other thing is we need to make sure that any biased language is out of there. So it can't be he, she, like she's going to do this, he's going to do that. It should be the candidate will do, right?
Yes.
So be it very generic. And then sometimes we forget to sell the role, right? Well, you're representing your organization, and you want someone who's really great to come into your organization typically. So you've got to make sure they know why you like it. So top it on this list, and achieved this, and just partnered with that, and some sort of accolades that show the actual amount of work that that client has been doing to be good at their business. And this person's going to get excited and motivated about it. They're like, wow, they're just like me. I would have done that too if I were them, or they're going to say, that's too much work. I don't think I want to work there, which is good because you don't want them, right? And then you need to update that job description, right? So every time there's movement in that role, you relook at that job, you calibrate it with the other jobs in the organization. Do we need it anymore? If we don't, get rid of it. Is AI going to help with that? Maybe, maybe not. And if we don't need that, what do we need to take its place? What is our vision, mission, and how are we driven to get there? And then how do we help everybody else do their part is really what that's about. Now,
I was going to say, when you mentioned AI, that kind of jumped out at me, and I think to myself, that's going to change so much. I mean, I look at
yes.
AI personally, between you and me, as an asset, not a liability, not my enemy. I think it's a tool that, if you're not using it in this day and age, you're kind of missing the boat a little bit. But
Yeah.
there is going to be some role changes I can see over the next 3 to 5 years that could change a person's job description and could change the job market overall.
So much. And I would say right now, just speaking about my staff, right? We're looking and using AI to help us with writing, because writing skill is hard. Think about all the attorneys that get hired, and we place a lot of attorneys as well. And if they can't write, they can't be an attorney. But now with AI, they can. They actually, even though because they're smart, right? But they just can't communicate in that way. So they can use AI. So people need to teach those attorneys that are coming up, those associate attorneys and so forth, teach them how to use AI in the right way. Their work always gets checked anyway, so it's fine until they learn how to write. And I mean, let's face it, when you're in estate and succession planning and you're going for a trust or whatever, these are cases you get frequently. So you know the writings are going to be similar. There's going to be a little bit different. So AI has actually made more people placeable in jobs where they could not be considered before, which has
Hmm.
been really good. There's a bad side to it, right? It seems like all the marketing we're getting is all AI now, right? So I get probably 200 emails a day and they're all from AI and I can tell they are.
Yeah.
So what's going to attract me if you're looking to do business with me is a handwritten normal email.
An authentic communication.
Yes. Yes, yes, Wayne, because I see how it's being used by so many people for so many ways, the AI. So
You touched on something a couple minutes ago that actually segues. I don't think it was intentional, but it segues nicely into our second question. Kathy Dawson from Dawson Dawson Incorporated is joining us from Laguna Niguel, California, and she's been in the staffing industry for over 40 years. So she's probably forgotten more than most people know in that space. So I want to get on to our second question, and that is question number two. What role does our firm's culture play when you're looking for a key employee? I can imagine you have lots to say about this. So, Kathy, I'm turning the floor over to you.
thank you so much, Wayne. If we've known each other for a bit, which is good, but if you knew me 20 years ago, you would know this is my thing. Like I am all about the culture. And I feel like any placement that we could make is going to go bad if we haven't looked at culture. So much so, Wayne, that even 43 years ago, the only way I would work with a company is if I went physically to their office and did a walkthrough to see what that culture was like. I looked for smiling faces, heads down. I looked for ease on parking, ease in getting in the building. I looked for ease of getting around the office itself and just the general way it was decorated, right? Like, did they put money and time into that? Do they care about their employees? Do they care about their company? Or is this a real fast, situation where they go into an executive suite and there's like 40 people there and nobody knows what's going on? It's a different environment. So, what does culture fit really mean to someone like us who's running a business? It really means the fit beyond the resume. Like I got what your resume is. I see you've been ABC company, DEF company, etc. I see what you did and why you did it. But I don't really understand how you're going to fit to me and my company just looking at that. And I'm really not going to until I get to know you. So that gets done in a variety of ways now. It used to be all face to face. You had no choice. You had to get your suit on, go on down there, wait in line, and fill out your application and then get that interview. And you were lucky if you had someone spend more than 20 to 30 minutes with you in a face-to-face interview. Now, in our time, during that time, we had everybody come in also. We spent 1 hour with them at the initial meeting. We spent the second hour with them before we present them to any of our clients. And the third hour was talking about the job that they were going to go interview for and prepping them for that job, making sure they knew what they were going to get into.
Hmm.
So that really makes a big difference, on the culture. And I used to tell my clients even then, back then, 75% of our hiring decisions based on personality and culture fit. So we know that we can get this other part right. That's easy. Looking and seeing if they have the skills. That's easy. The tough part and the part you really want to hire a recruiter for is to get the right fit.
The
That's what's wrong.
connectivity, the human
That's right.
connectivity.
That's right. That's right. So it also attracts the right type of leaders, the culture, right? So I wouldn't work for a company that was like this to my employees. I couldn't do that because I couldn't embody what they wanted me to as a leader. So I couldn't take that job. It also it really helps with the onboarding and retention. So you use that job description that talks about the culture and their responsibilities. You meld the two together. There's no question in their mind. They know what they need to do. That's the biggest problem, Wayne, with getting someone hired and keeping them hired is them knowing what they're supposed to do. They do not take a job wanting to fail. That is never anybody's intention. So why do they fail? It's usually their boss.
Yeah, well, my old boss back in Canada used to say to me, Wayne, there's no such thing as bad braves. There are bad chiefs,
There you go. There you go. I love that.
right?
Yep. Yep.
the tip of
So
my hat.
I always like to say, skills are what get you in the door, but culture determines whether you stay.
Got it. So on that note, like what, you business leaders, they got so many things coming at them. What can they do really to identify and articulate their culture clearly enough that they make sure that their key hire thrives?
So
There's got to
this
be.
is,
Go ahead.
yeah, that's a tough question because that's not it's not enough time in our call to be able
We
to do
could.
that. However, I'm going to give you the once over, the quick answer. And then again, these people can reach out to me and I'll give them this information for free. But what I would recommend on developing culture and kind of figuring out how to get the right people, the right seats in the right place in the bus, as they say. So how do we do that? And it's really about, the step-by-step guide, and it's again too long to really go over it right now, but I'll just kind of give you the gist of it. So basically, you want something that's a reflection of what's true. So when you want to get your executives together, or if it's you and a partner, the two of you together, and then you go, okay, why did we open this company? What was our vision and our mission? And why did we want to do this? And we're not just crazy, because it takes a lot of time, energy, and money to open a business. And it doesn't always work out, as we well know. What 1 out of 7 succeed, the other 6 do not. So that's not a good number. So you want to make sure that you're doing something that you feel really good about. So you figure out what it is that you started. So my husband and I, it was to make sure that we had our family values first, our business values second, and then our freedom third. So that's what our culture is here. So we have unlimited time off. We have unlimited vacation. We have great benefits. We have a 401k, a defined benefit. We have everything for the employee. We built that in year 2 because it was so important to us. So how do you do that for yourself when you're trying to create it there? Well, you've got to do things for you, at first, and then it goes out to the rest of the staff as you continue to grow. So we want to make sure that you put that in a document. And I always try to get a 1-page about what's great about this company. So that way we can send it to our candidates. And if they don't know how to do it, we have a great marketing team that's amazing at it. So,
Hmm.
so you want to define what your core values are, right? Our core values were family first. My husband and I both were in corporate jobs, and we worked 10, 12-hour days really the first 40 years of our career. And we didn't think anything of it until our kids popped out and said, why are you working so hard? And we're like, because we love to work. And they said, well,
Yeah,
that's great, but we
I
love
can
to,
identify with that, by the way.
yeah, we love to
To this
travel, they
day,
said.
to
Yeah, yeah,
this,
I know. They actually teach us a lot, those kids, don't they?
yeah,
So,
certainly.
so you define the core values, then you define your non-negotiables. Like if you told me I couldn't see my kid in a performance at their school, I would quit. Because
Right.
I'd be like, what? You don't even like have the same respect for me as I have for this company and this job. We have to have some flexibility here. And then
Yeah.
articulate both now and then what's next. So what's happening now? What do you want to be next, right? So you and your partner, or you and your EC, or whatever you're dealing with, and then embed the culture in the hiring process. So what is your family like? We lead we're forward first for their family. So you don't have to have a bunch of kids. That's not what we're saying. But do you enjoy your family? Because some people don't have good families, so it doesn't mean they don't want them. And we can be their office family, right? We do that. We
Right.
wrap our arms around people. And then write a cultural snapshot. So that's interesting. That's another one I'm going to send to them, the cultural snapshot. So this is sort of a marketing piece about why your company is successful, what's so great about it for the people that work there. And usually like a Glassdoor would love to get that information and put it on Glassdoor to tell them why you guys are great. So that's how you're going to develop your culture, but it's going to be much more intense than that because it's much more there's much more work to get there. It just doesn't come right away. It takes some time.
You've given a great overview, Kathy, on that, and really helpful. I want to get on to our third question, and
You bet.
it's, everybody wants everything to happen right away. Which is perfect for this third question. So question number 3 is, what is a realistic timeline for hiring a new employee in today's job market?
I love that question. And I get that every single time I talk to a company, right? They'll say, so how long is this going to take? And so it's really a good question, though, because you have to set expectations. We just said the client expectations, the candidate expectations are what's been changing. Well, guess what? If you don't deal with it, they're going to think that you're not doing your job, and the reality is you are. So it depends on the level of the search. Like we just placed a C-suite out of a company, international company, and we did it less than 30 days, which was really amazing.
Wow.
And this person had to have international, they had to have that C-suite, they had to have operations and manufacturing, and there was really a few things on this search that was very difficult. And so we weren't so sure. And we told the client that we said, well, this is what our best case would be, less than 30 days, but probably we're looking at 60 to 90 days. And the reason for that is because he wanted us to do a full worldwide search, which we do, and give me the best in the world. I don't care what I don't care what the cost is. Give me the best in the world, which we love, of course, because then we'll show them, okay, this one's making $1 million, this one's $500,000, this one's 300,000, this is 200,000. Which do you like? And usually it comes down to the less but more skills. And they want them to build it. So that's a great question, but unrealistic for me to answer today on this call. But I will say, if it's an admin role and the people who are doing the hiring aren't as difficult, like they're not really picky and they don't scream and yell and shout, because a lot of the people do, then we can fill it less time, right? But if this is a challenge and the positions turned over 3 times in the last year, and we know it's combat pay, as I said earlier, then we tell the candidate, this is a very high paying admin job, but it's the highest level of a publicly traded company, and you're going to get a lot of great experience. So you either want to buy into that or not. So what do you want to do? And I'd say 90% say, no, I want to have the quality of life. I don't care if I make, 120,000 as an admin. I just want a quality of life. So that's good. We need to know that. But the ones that are up for it, like I had this lady who was a CEO's assistant to Shearson American Lehman Express, and he used to do all kinds of things that were not polite in his role. And this was probably 30 years ago even. And so I told her, do you want to take a job that's like that, or do you want more of a regular company? And she
Traditional
said,
job.
yeah, and you know what she said? She said, I want to take that job. I want the money. I need the down payment for a house. I'm going to take that job. So we sent her on the interview. She got it. She got that house and she was happy, but she left after a couple of years. And they were happy to have her for 2 years because they had 3 in 1 year before.
Right.
So it's
So,
very different.
so are there any, like, I'm just thinking about this before we wrap up our questions here. Are there strategies actually in place for business owners that they could use to sort of speed the hiring process up? Is it a process always? Is it always a process more than an event? Or like, is there any, like, if you were sitting down with somebody who says, I need to hire somebody and I need to turn this around fairly quickly, are there things that you would suggest that they do or don't
Yes.
do?
Yes. The first thing is, don't be so picky. Because that's what holds us up,
Here's a
right?
mirror. Can you fog
Yeah,
it? Hired.
right. Well, not that bad, but they're not going to get someone from us though that's not skilled, right, or qualified. So we have over 1,000 tests we can give people, all kinds of tests, and we pay
Sure.
for that a lot for that every year. So we're happy to give as many tests as you want, but we don't want to test someone to death either, right? And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that, when they're getting ready to hire, that they know what they want, and they need to have like a clear cut, streamlined sort of job description. So we talked about the job description, why it's so valuable. And so if you have that, it's easy to post that, get that to your recruiting team, whatever it is you're going to do, and then follow up on it. So how's it going? You getting anybody interested? Is there anybody going to be interviewing here? You have to do that. Now, if for some reason you're asking for someone who knows Lotus, because I used that earlier, you're not going to find someone who knows
Good
Lotus. So we already
Lord.
know that. So
The thought
you may
frightens
have
me.
Yes, right. You may have to upgrade your systems, right? If you're old school Lotus and WordPerfect, you're not going to be in today's world. So what you're going to have to do is get yourself ready to hire someone quickly if you aren't.
You had to be prepared, is bottom line what you're saying. Be
That's right.
prepared before they contact Kathy. Do your work first, then contact Kathy, as opposed to coming
Yeah.
in. Yeah, I get it 100%. Makes perfect sense. Looking back, I almost hate to bring it up, but 40 some years now in this industry, which is remarkable. you've been helping, businesses hire key employees by the thousands.
True, true. And
What,
loved every
what,
minute of it. Oh
yeah,
my
yeah,
God,
I
so
can,
much fun.
and you show it well, by the way. Uh,
Thank you.
what's the one hiring lesson you wish every business leader knew that so they could avoid, like you've outlined, not only have you provided solutions today, but what I really appreciate is you've outlined some of the costly mistakes that business owners make when they're going through hiring. You did a great job of articulating both sides of the coin here. But if there was one lesson they could learn, what would it be?
I'm going to go back to what I said earlier because it's about the fit. So, what people tend to do is they tend to hire based on just skills. They go, okay, there's an accountant, they got their CPA, they've this, they that, but they don't really even make sure that they're okay with a manufacturing organization versus a service organization, or maybe they should be more worldwide versus a local. So the fit is the thing. Like I said,
Mhm.
75% is what I used to say, but I believe it's 85% now. Some people say 90. When I do my thing with them, they'll say, "Oh no, it's 90, it's 90." So I believe everybody feels the same way I do, that it is very, very important to have a fit. So it's really more important than the skill. So if you think about it, 75 to 85, and then you have just the rest left over for skills. So you can teach most people skills. You can teach them how to write. You can teach them how to think about things differently. If it's in customer service, or maybe it's revenue contribution or something like that, you can kind of work with the mind a little bit, but you cannot work with their fit as far as a person. They're already a person when they come to you,
Yes.
and they have what they have in their background. If they've been divorced 5 times, if they have 12 kids that don't love them, all of that is there already.
Yeah, you can't.
And
Yeah.
so what happens with us as recruiters is we love these people. We wrap our arms around them because we can see the good in them. And if they can't see the good in them, then they're still not a good fit. They need to see the good in them. So I always tell people, they say, what is the most important advice you could give anybody, as far as hiring and looking for a job and that kind of thing, whether it's on either side? And I say it's confidence, Wayne. If I could give everybody a dose of confidence, oh my gosh, I would feel so much better about
The
the
world
world,
works in a
because
better place when you're confident about anything.
oh
That's
my gosh,
100%.
it's so much better, right? So, and that actually, the book that we were talking about earlier, it's about confidence.
Actually, I wanted to talk about that. Wow, that was a very, very seamless segue. I'd like you to, before you wrap up here, just talk a little about this new book that you have coming out.
Or I'll put it on this side since it's already on that side.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I do that? I don't think I can.
Shameless self-promoting. There you go.
Anyway, yes, this book I was really very excited about co-authoring it with my coach, Patty D. Dominic. And she's written about 30 books, and she's acquired 20 businesses in my business, in the search and staffing business. And so it was
Interesting.
really a great labor of love to rewrite this book, The New World of Work, with her. I wrote 13 chapters, she wrote 3, and I learned how to write a book, which was amazing. But this is about candidates and clients that don't have the ability to have that roadmap to get through to the next level. This is specifically for people who are at that point in their careers where they're thinking about, am I in the right career? Do I need to change careers because I don't like this
I
career?
have right now, I'm sorry. I have a friend of mine. I need a copy of that book. Is it available on Amazon?
It is on Amazon.
I
Absolutely.
have,
Just
I
Google the
have,
new world of work.
okay, you know what? I have a good friend of mine that I'm going to share this with them.
Nice. Well, it's
Like,
good for people that are changing in midstream, or even seniors for that matter. So it's actually written for high school graduates, college graduates, any kind of a graduate. Doesn't matter where they graduate from. Very high end also. And it talks about, like, the third chapter says, just got fired. Now what do I do? And you're like, whoa, that's not going to happen to me, but it does. It happens to everybody where they get fired mostly at some point. So how do you recover from that? And then how do you pick a company? Because that's the other thing we don't do very well here in the US, is we don't teach our people coming up how to select the type of industry or company they might be interested in. And so we should be doing more of that. And this book is going to go out there to the people so they can read it and actually make a difference in their own career. They have the tools in that book to get any job they want.
so it's the new world of work.
It is on
Um,
Amazon.
okay, well,
And I
Uh,
will personally sign it, whoever wants it. So you just tell
well,
me you listen to this on the podcast and it will get a sign, you'll get a signed copy.
well, I am going to share a copy of this book with a good friend of mine who I think really
Nice.
appreciates. So thank you, Kathy. You're a great guest today. I really, really,
No,
really
thank you.
enjoyed having you join me. And for those that are watching here, they can, we've included all your contact information on this, but we
Nice.
have a lot of people that are listening on Apple or Spotify. For
Good.
them, could you share what is the best way for them to contact you? Because you mentioned earlier that you have some tips and some tools that people can use. If they want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do it?
Well, the email, so our website, so dawsondawsoninc.com is the website. So you send us anything on there. It says there's place for inquiries. And then also the phone number. So the main number is 949-421-3966.
Yeah.
And that gets you right into our phone system. And then we have lovely people who will be ready to help you and get you where you need to go. When you do call in, you want to say, hey, I listened to Wayne Baxter's show and the 3 questions, and I really want to just ask her a question. You want to mention that so that I'll get back to you right away. I do get quite a few calls, so I don't want you to get lost in the shuffle.
Perfect. Kathy, I want to thank you again for joining us today. Kathy Dawson serves as founder and CEO of Dawson and Dawson Inc., and she joined us today from beautiful Laguna Niguel, California. Kathy, thanks a lot and we'll hope to
Oh,
see you
thank you
soon.
so much, you guys. It was my pleasure.
My pleasure too. Okay, thank you, Kathy.
Uh-huh.
I look forward to bringing you the 3 Questions podcast, and I hope you find them educational and informative. Please consider liking this video and subscribing to our podcast and YouTube channels. And to receive notification of when our latest episode has been posted, please click on the notifications bell. Last but not least, to schedule an online Zoom consultation with me to discuss your wealth management needs, please click on the link in the description box below, www.onecapital.com/meet with Wayne. Thank you, and we will see you soon.